Today's lesson is a review of some math properties. Your learning target states, I can identify the commutative, associative, zero, identity, and distributive properties when given examples. So you should have some fill-in-the-blank notes. Make sure that you got the copy of the handout for this topic. Then, as you're watching the video, fill in your note page with the correct information. You're going to then glue this into your interactive math notebook. Okay, so let's start with the commutative property. Your notes say, when two numbers are multiplied together, the product is the same regardless of the order. For example, 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. This is the commutative property, so you're going to write that in your blank for your fill-in-the-blank notes. And while you're doing that, I just want you to know that this works for addition as well. So 5 plus 9, for example, is the same as 9 plus 5. The way I remember this is I commute to work, meaning I move from one place to the other. I go from home to work. So when you commute, you are changing locations. And so if you think about it, this 5 changed its location. It went from first place to last place. Or this 9 went from last place to first place. It moved its location, or it commuted. The next property on your sheet reads, when 3 or more numbers are added, the sum is the same regardless of the grouping of the addends. For example, 2 plus the group 3 plus 4 is the same as the group 2 plus 3 plus 4. So you are going to write the associative property in the blank for your notes. This also works for multiplication. So 1 times 2 times 3 is the same as 1 times 2 times 3. So the way I remember this one is about associates, or maybe friendships. So right now, 2 and 3 are associating with each other. But when I change the grouping, it could be 1 and 2 associated. Now notice the order of the numbers hasn't changed. It's just who's grouped with whom. And so that's the associative property. The identity property is next. Your notes say when a person adds or subtracts 0 or multiplies or divides by 1, the original number remains unchanged. That is the identity property. That's what you're going to write in your blank. And let me give you a couple of examples. So I could take 19 plus 0. That's still 19. The identity of that number has remained unchanged. Or I could take 95 divided by 1 is still 95. It's the same thing. Its identity has not changed. That is the identity property. All right, next on your notes you will see the sum of two numbers times a third number is equal to the sum of each addend times the third number. For example, 6 times 5 and a half could be thought of as 6 times 5 and 6 times 1/2. And so the distributive property is what you're going to write in there. We're going to have a lesson on this later, but let me just give you a short one here on the distributive property. And so the distributive property, it's really about taking and distributing or sharing or sprinkling, whatever you want to use on each part. So this 6 is going to be sprinkled onto the 5. So we have 6 times 5. And that's the plus. You're going to take the 6 and sprinkle it onto the 1/2. So that's how we ended up with the two different parts. Okay, first thing I noticed is I have a typo. Seems to be a thing with me. This is not the identity property. I must have copied and pasted wrong. This is the zero property. So when a person multiplies or divides and ends with an answer of 0, that is the zero property. Sorry for that. So for example, 0 divided by 8 is 0, or, my goodness, or 4 times 0 is 0. That's a 0 property. Okay, now that you have your list of properties, I want you to see if you can identify these three. So look through your choices. Decide which belongs with each one of these three. You're going to pause me while you work and think, and then come back when you're ready for checking. All right, so let's check this first one. So it looks like I multiplied by 0 and I ended with 0. So this is the 0 property. On the second one, I changed my grouping or my associations. 9 is not with 3 anymore. 3 is now with 5. That is the associative property. And then finally, whenever I do an operation, but the number remains unchanged, that is the identity property. Same thing here. I want you to look through your list, see if you can identify which property I am showing you. You're going to pause me while you write those out, and then come back for checking. All right, so this first one, it looks like things have changed position or moved around. First place is now last place. Last place is now first place. That is the commutative property. On this second one, this one was a little tricky because I did not give you the middle step. So if I sprinkle 2 times 7 and I sprinkle the 2 onto the 6, 2 times 6, it looks like I'm going to have 14 and 12, which is what I had, 14 and 12. This is the distributive. That was a tricky one. Okay, last one. It looks like my grouping has changed. 6 and 9 are not together anymore. It's now 9 and 3. And so that is the associative property again. All right, here's video question number 1. So you're going to write your answers on a piece of paper and turn it in for checking. So here we go. Using the commutative property, write an equivalent expression for 3 times 2. Think about what it means for the commutative property and write me the equivalent expression. All right, video question number 2. This time I want you to use the distributive property, and I want you to write an equivalent expression. Pause while you're working and come back when you're ready for question 3. Video question number 3 says, using the associative property, write an equivalent expression for the group of 4 times 2 times 5. Pause while you're working. Come back when you're ready for question number 4. All right, question number 4. Write an example of the 0 property. While you're working, pause me and then come back when you're ready for the last question. All right, last question. Write an example of the identity property. When you're done, double check you have your name and period number on your paper and then turn it in.